Hello and welcome to another episode of the Project Purple podcast. I'm Dino Varelli, founder and CEO of Project Purple, and we have another interview for you coming up with a very special guest after a quick few updates here from the podcast studio. 2022 was a record year, and we want to thank everyone who made it so special, from our participants, our sponsors, and of course, our runners and our alumni who helped us make 2022 a record year. Right now, we are actually full with most of our spring races, other than the Grandma's Marathon in June and the Lincoln Marathon in May. We also have the Chicago Half Marathon in May that we are currently recruiting for, as well as many of our fall races. Believe it or not, it's crazy. We're in January here, we're in February, and we're already recruiting for races in October, September, and November. So make sure to follow us on social media and check out our website for all those great races. We also locally here in Connecticut have our golf outing coming up on June 5th. If you're a golfer, come golf with us. And we also have some wonderful sponsorship opportunities still available. We also have our virtual Purple Patties virtual event coming up in March. To learn more about all these great things, as I said, make sure to visit our website at projectpurple.org and make sure to follow us on social media, wherever you're on social media, to stay updated. We're everywhere. Without further ado, let's meet our special guest today, coming to us all the way from Memphis, Tennessee, pancreatic cancer survivor, Angela Baines. Angela, thank you for joining me here on the Project Purple podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm excited because A, you're a survivor. B, we had to reschedule this, which I always get full disclosure. I always say full disclosure, but I get a little nervous sometimes because I know like stuff comes up, whether it's treatment or anything, but you rescheduled right away, which is awesome. We got you back into the calendar because I was looking forward to having you on the podcast the other day. So everything worked out, which is awesome. And as I said, you're a pancreatic cancer survivor, and you and I were talking before we hit record here, and really the one thing about this podcast, we're going on our 6th year here. When we started it, it was about awareness, about bringing inspiring stories. And I think there's nothing else more inspiring than bringing survivors on our podcast. So whenever we bring survivors on, I just know how special that is for myself, for us here at Project Purple, but also for the community. So really excited to have you on. So thank you for taking the time. As I mentioned before we were talking, the first segment of the podcast is always our guest opportunity to kind of share with our community their background, a little bit about their journey with pancreatic cancer. And with that, Angela, the microphone is yours.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, like you said, I am from Memphis, Tennessee. I grew up here, just a granny's girl, hung around the older generation all the time, sat at their feet and listened to their stories. And I'm the oldest grandchild in our family. So I kind of grew up with my aunts and uncles. As far as my background, I graduated from college here at Lemoyne College, a historical Black college here in Memphis, Tennessee. It's actually my family's alma mater. I currently work for Pfizer Pharmaceutical. I've been there. This is going on my 20th year. I'm so elated about that. I love my job. And my husband and I own a metalworks company here in Memphis, and we've been in business for 10 years now. And it's really going well. Our son works with us, so it's steadily growing. And hopefully my grandsons will take it over someday. As far as my background in health, I guess I'll say, I was always athletic in high school, junior high school. I ran track, played in the band, the flute, sang in the choir, still sing in the choir today. So I always try to make, good choices in life. I like to travel. I love to read. I love interacting with people, and try to set a good example, with those that I come in contact with, and share positive information if I can. It's just something that I love to do. Leave people, I guess, in a better state than when I met them. So when I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, it was really shocking to me because I felt I'd done, all of the right things in life. I stayed physically active. I ran, I ate the right things, so I thought, and I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't stay up all times of the night. I just thought I was on the right track to, maintaining a healthy life. But little did I know, you can't prevent yourself from getting a disease or cancer like, pancreatic cancer. It's just something that can happen. And the type of tumor that I had was a solid mass. And I'm so grateful that it was a solid mass. It hadn't spread anywhere. And it was caught in the first stage, low grade. And that doesn't happen. That's so rare to happen for people. So I feel very, very blessed to be here. And it's like my whole team, my doctors, my family physician, my GI doctor, my surgeon, it's like they all lined right up together. They were all believers, and they gave me such hope, when they started to discuss with me my options of dealing with it. I was so happy to find that I didn't need to have chemo. So I'm so glad I was, I didn't have to go that route, but I did have to have a Whipple procedure done. And that was a tough surgery. That was a tough surgery, even for someone like myself who had been healthy, never even got a cold. The only time I ever went to the hospital was when I had my children. My baby's 30. So, I thought, I was really, really in good shape. But it was still a tough surgery to get through. Matter of fact, I had complications after my surgery, but I'm so grateful that they were able to get everything resolved and restore me back to good health.
So I want to back up. When you were diagnosed, what year was that?
I was diagnosed in 2020.
Wow. So when in 2020?
I'll tell you the story. I went to the hospital in January of 2020. And no, I take that back. December of 2019, I went to the hospital.
So right before COVID. So this is like pre-COVID, life's normal. I think at that point we kind of heard about it in Italy, maybe.
Just getting ready to hit the scene. Yeah. And so I was in the hospital. Went to the emergency room because I'd had a terrible, pain in my side. And I, just didn't know, it was kind of persistent. And I just didn't know what was going on with it. And I've had a blood clot before. And so with me being a person that has had a blood clot, I didn't want to take any chances. So I went to the hospital and I wanted them to do, a Doppler vein test or something, just, see what's going on here. It feels really, really weird. And so they ran all the tests, ended up doing a CT scan. And once they got the reading back from the CT scan while I was there in the emergency room, no one ever said that they saw a mass. All they told me was to follow up with my physician, my regular physician. And I follow instructions, so I immediately made an appointment with my doctor the next day to see him in 2 weeks. Went to that appointment, and my physician, I've had him for 20 years, the same physician. And so he's always very straightforward with me. And he told me, he said, they found a mass. He said, but what I'd like to do is monitor it for 6 months. And that was shocking to me because when you say mass, I'm like, okay, so what is it? Where is it? And he was telling me that it was in my pancreas. That it was at the head of the pancreas, and he pulled out a chart so he could illustrate to me what he meant by the head of the pancreas, and where the mass was. And he did explain to me that in monitoring it, he wanted to see if there would be any changes to it, to the size of it. He explained the size of it currently, and that we would monitor. So I left the doctor's office that day, and I really didn't think anything of it. Matter of fact, looking back, when he said mass, it never registered to me cancer. Never. Me, because I was, in my mind, I'm perfectly healthy. So when he said that, I was like, okay. So 6 months rolls by. I come back for my visit. And of course, we do another CT scan. And he gets the readings back, and he tells me, well, it's grown. And we'd like to do a biopsy now. So it's still not registering to me the possibility of cancer. I was like, oh, okay. Because I trust him so much. I know he's going to take care of me. So whatever he's saying, sure. Got scheduled for the biopsy. I went in for that. And the GI doctor didn't call me back or anything to tell me, because normally I have this online chart where I can see
my chart.
Yes. So normally whenever I take any type of test, I can go there and I can see my, test. But he didn't place them out there. But my doctor's office called me. And he told me that he was going to make another appointment to talk to me directly about the findings. And I didn't get nervous right then. But what caused me to get nervous was the fact that his office called me on a Thursday to tell me that we needed to talk face to face. On that Friday, I get a call from a surgeon's office scheduling me for surgery, and I haven't had a discussion yet.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That was on a Friday. So I was on pins and needles all weekend. Like, what in the world, right? No one's told me anything about a surgery, but I've got a surgery consultation, scheduled already. What's really going on? So I went through the weekend wondering what, was really going on. Monday comes, and I get into my doctor's office, and he tells me that tumor. It's solid. He tells me the size of it. However, he says with the rate of growth that it would be best to go ahead and take it out now.
Angela, you froze there for a second. So what kind of tumor was it?
Neuroendocrine.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said. Okay, so it was so at that point, then they discovered that it was a neuroendocrine tumor. But
yes,
they want to take it out. Correct,
because of where it was in the pancreas, and the speed at the rate of growth of it. It would soon block the duct for the enzyme secretion.
Correct.
So I did tell him that I wanted to think about it because I needed to process it. Someone who always thought of themselves as being healthy, how could this be, and an immediate decision for surgery, So I took the information and I thought about it. And I scheduled an appointment with my GI doctor, the doctor that actually did the biopsy, because I needed them to explain to me. I wanted to make an educated decision for myself, whether I felt that this was really necessary. Because like I said, I've never been cut on or I hadn't had any surgeries. I've really been healthy. So I thought, So I went into the office. I talked to him, and he explained to me, the consequences of not removing it, and thought that I should have a discussion with the surgeon. He did apologize for scheduling the surgery consultation, before anybody talked to me about what was going on with me. So he did kind of quell that anxiety. So the doctor that he had scheduled the surgery consultation with was Dr. Bierman. Well, while I was waiting to get to go for the consultation, I was talking to some people, I'm like, well, maybe I should just go and get a second opinion somewhere, I was thinking about going to Vanderbilt or somewhere, where should I go? And I don't know, something just told me to look up Dr. Bierman. And I looked him up. And once I read his background, I knew that I was in good hands with Dr. Bierman. It was just like it was a relief, because I knew that he knew what he was doing. And so when I went in to meet him, he greeted me with a really, really intense and long hug. And it was very sincere. My mom went with me that day, and my husband went with me. And he explained a little bit to me about the type of cancer I had. And he did pull out his chart. He gave me all of the pros and cons of doing the Whipple procedure. He gave me all of the percentages regarding complications and fatality. So he was very straightforward with me. He answered all of my questions, and I just felt really, really comfortable with him. And I left there with having to make the decision of the next steps, whether we were going to go ahead with the Whipple procedure. In that meeting with Dr. Bierman, though, I have to say, he was the first one that ever said the C word to me. Not anyone in the emergency room at the hospital, not my family physician, not my GI doctor. He was the first and only one to actually say cancer to me. And I'm going to tell you, it really spun me for a loop, because it's like as soon as I got home, I went into my room and I looked in the mirror at myself, because I'm looking for the illness. How could I have not known? I'm looking in my eyes to see, okay, do I have any yellow in my eyes? I'm looking at my skin, to see if there's something that would have told me. Looking at my nails and everything. But what I did see in a picture that I'd taken that day after he told me that I had cancer, I saw my frailty, if that makes sense. That is what I was able to see. I'd always been of the mindset, I was just invincible. Every challenge that I ever encountered in life, I was able to step up to the plate, meet it, exceed that challenge, and keep going, waiting for the next thing. But this one had me uncertain. And it kind of shook me. It really did. On my second visit to see Dr. Bierman, where we were getting ready to take some of the tests that I needed to take prior to the surgery, we talked again. And he sat me down and he explained to me, he said, I want to know what your belief is. What is your belief system? And we talked about my faith. And he told me, he said, do you trust that I'm able to do your surgery successfully? And I told him that I did. I believed that he could do it. From what I'd read about him, I believed that he was going to be able to handle my surgery successfully. So I trusted him. But I trusted God first and foremost. And then that's when he explained to me that he trusted God to guide him. And he said, if you don't believe that we're going to come through this successfully, I can't even take you as a client to do it. That was so reassuring to me that he had my interest at best, that I couldn't help but take him on as my surgeon. Does that make sense?
It's very profound what you've just said. And so it totally makes sense, Angela. Mm-hmm. And this is something, and I am so happy that this has all come out here, mm-hmm. because this is what we tell patients all the time. If they do not believe in their oncologist, if they do not believe in their surgeon, then go find someone who you do believe in.
Absolutely.
Because it is so critical. And there's so many, and kudos to Dr. Berriman and, for being that type of person. So there's two things. I know you work in the pharma industry. So this isn't pharma. This is medical, what I'm going to say. There are so many bad doctors and bad actors that I don't mind calling them out on the podcast and telling patients, like, if you go to a doctor and he is a jerk to you and you do not connect, I don't care if he's rated the number one surgeon in the world. Go find number 2 and number 3, or go find someone that you connect with, right? Because you're putting your faith, you're putting your life in someone else's hands. And I cannot tell you how many times people say, well, that doctor has awful bedside manner, but I'm like, what other but? Like it's your life.
That's right. That's right.
Like, I don't get that. I do not get that. And I think part of it is, this is me, my opinion here. It's not Project Purple's. It's not anyone else's, is that I think people are scared. They're scared when they get diagnosed with the C word, right? Like it's a gut punch. You said something here. I wrote this down. Like, you saw the frailty in yourself because of the word cancer, right? And that frailty, that's what people experience mentally and also physically, but it's mental in the very beginning when they're given that diagnosis. Yeah. And so it's this whole rush of emotions. And I think sometimes, like they say, never make decisions based on emotion. And I think part of the system, again, this is Dino Varelli's theory on this, mm-hmm. is that it's designed to do that. The system's designed to have patients not make rational decisions. Now, do I think it's happening like on purpose? No. But I think subconsciously here, it's by design that the system has been developed that way. Because if everyone took back, like I've seen practices where people get the diagnosis and then the next day they're doing chemo. Like that should be outlawed. Like, no one should be and I'm not saying, and the reason why I'm saying it should be outlawed is because, I'm going off on a rant here, on a tangent, Angela, but this is going to come back to like the belief in the doctor, because no doctor, no clinician should be pushing people into treatment within 24 hours, or pushing in. Everyone should have ample time to make educated decisions that are best for them.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
And so it's such a relief. And I'm so glad that you bring this up about Dr. Berriman, that you have this connection spiritually, emotionally, physically, right? Because that's how this is what every patient should go through. Mm-hmm, and I guarantee if we get to that point in our medical system, the outcomes are going to skyrocket in a positive way. Positive outcomes will skyrocket. So I just really appreciate you saying that, because that is so powerful. And as I said before we hit record, this is part of the power of this podcast is, hearing patients and survivors talk about that connection. That's how everyone should experience that. Everyone should go into that surgical consult and eat. Like you said, it was the first time you heard the word cancer, which is gut wrenching. I can't fathom. I've never been there in my life. I've heard that time and time again, what that feeling is like. Never had it happen to myself. Mm-hmm. But to have a connection with a doctor, though, that is going to do everything in his power to save your life when you hear the worst words of your life is just so powerful.
It was. I can't even explain to you the feeling that I had when he spoke to me and he showed me how much he cared about his patients. Matter of fact, before I left his office that day, he'd given me his card. And on the back of his card, he turned it over and he wrote a former patient's name on it, Mrs. Wiggins. And he wrote her phone number down. He said, all of my patients, call her. He said, because she's an excellent guide about going through this type of cancer. He said, she has a success story, but it was not without obstacles. He said, but I think she would be of great help to you, because I needed somebody. I've never known anybody that had pancreatic cancer. I don't even know, and I know my family's medical history, but I don't know anybody in my family that has had it. So I didn't have anybody, to ask questions of or anything. Personally, I didn't even know anybody, even outside of my family, that had it other than, entertainers that maybe they, after they passed, they would announce this is what they suffered from. But nobody, I didn't know anybody. So I did take him up on calling Miss Wiggins, and she was so sweet to me. And we still keep in touch to this day. But my question was, I wanted to know, okay, so with the surgery, how long did it take you to recover? Did you have to have chemo? She did have to have chemo. About the weight loss. Did you ever pick your weight back up? Did you, what happened with your skin? And she just answered all of my questions. Then I did get around to discussing my feelings about being diagnosed, because I didn't think anybody would understand when I said I saw my frailty. That's rare. People don't normally see that in themselves. And so I had a question of why did this happen when I was so good about trying to live a healthy life? She said, Angela, I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I didn't stay out all times of the night. She said, I'm very athletic. She said, I maintained my weight. She said, I ate the right things. I did good by people. She said, I had to come to grips that this illness was not about whether or not we maintained our health. It can happen to anybody. And she said, this is not about you directly. It's nothing that you did wrong. Because I'm trying to figure out how did this happen to me? What did I do? Did I eat too much cheese? What? I just did not, And she said, this isn't about you. She said, this is just something that you're going to go through so that on the other side, you'll be a testimony of the fact that you can recover and that you can live a life after overcoming pancreatic cancer. And when she told me that, that gave me such great encouragement. It wasn't the answer I was looking for, but it was the answer that I needed, if that makes sense. You know, I was really looking for her to tell me, oh, so what did you eat? You know, what was your normal, you know, what's normally on your menu? You know, I thought she was going to tell me some specifics. Oh, that's what caused it, you know, but no, she gave me the answer that I needed so that I could move on and see this from a different perspective, a positive perspective. And so I kept in contact with her, and she put me in contact with others that were dealing with pancreatic cancer or have survived pancreatic cancer. And they have these monthly meetings, and I would get on the calls. And I still do, not the calls, but we do a text weekly now, just to keep in contact with one another and continue to encourage one another. One thing that I've learned in having a cancer diagnosis is, just like you said, you know, you must come to grips with the acceptance. If you do not come to grips with the acceptance on the front end, then you're already setting yourself up for failure. So accept the diagnosis, then come up with an educated course of treatment for yourself. Work with your team of physicians, but you are the one that's going to make that final, you know, decision. Okay, this is the path that I'm going to take. And you have to be sure of the path that you're going to take, because you're wanting to make sure that you keep the proper perspective of the outcome that you're expecting to achieve every step of the way. And with that type of mindset, I believe that's why I was able to come through as good as I did. I did have complications after my Whipple procedure. They discovered that I had some leakage going on in my abdomen. So I ended up having
ulcers. They call them ulcers.
Well, what happened, they didn't call them ulcers. What happened was I developed this really, really high fever. I mean, I was so sick. And I ended up going back in to the hospital, and they found that there was bile leakage. So it was just, bile floating, made me really, really sick. And they ended up inserting, I had 4 drainage tubes that they insert. And then they sent me back home with that. And so for, I want to say about 3 weeks, I was draining. They were able to take 2 out. And then they continued to drain a little while longer after that. I had to go to see my oncologist. And he gave me, I forgot the medicine that he gave me, but it was an antibiotic. It was so strong, but I needed that because I was taking the oral antibiotics and slowing the process. But I ended up going to him, and they did a IV run of the antibiotics. I want to say it was fluconazole. I might be wrong on that. Fluoxetine or something. But nevertheless, it was a very, very strong antibiotic, but it did work. It worked. I felt so much better, so much sooner. And I ended up coming home, keeping the tubes in 2 more weeks, the last 2. So when I went in, finally after those last 2 weeks to get the tubes out, they did the CT scan, and they were able to tell me that I could get both of my tubes out. However, I had some soup, and they told me I needed to go and see Dr. Bierman immediately. I thought they were just going to take the tubes out, and I was going to be about, on my way. And went to Dr. Bierman's office, and he tells me that they located a abdominal aneurysm. So I had to have immediate surgery to have stents placed in through my groin area while I was woke. Because I had something to eat, so I couldn't have any anesthesia or anything. So that was an experience. But I came through that. I was okay after that. Building up my strength after all of that was a bit challenging. I didn't have any, my metabolism was zero. I really didn't have an appetite. So my meals consisted of glucerna, yogurt, Jello for a little while. Then I moved my way up to a little bit of eggs, scrambled eggs. So it was a steady, but slow getting, my up to a good appetite. So now, even when I'm saying my prayers, I thank God for an appetite because I know what it's like not to even have one. But I knew I had to eat so that I could heal and recover strength. And of course, all of the walking that you have to do when you come through this type of surgery, I could do that. I would walk up and down the street. Then I got to the point where I was able to go back to my walking trail and walk. So I just kept, taking progressive steps day by day to get myself better. During this time, I'd lost in 3 months, I'd lost, I want to say about 55 pounds.
Oh my God.
So I was really, 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 really thin. And I only took one picture of myself during that time because I didn't want to remember the way that I looked when I was going through it. But I've gained my weight. Probably have gained a little bit too much, but I do have a good appetite now. I don't do processed food, so I don't eat out as much as I used to. If I do, I go to select places that have some things that I feel comfortable eating, but for the most part, I eat at home. I take my lunch, take my breakfast to work. So I'm just really mindful about what I eat. One of the things, though, that's funny, popcorn. I love popcorn, and it's one of the things that I love to have with my grandchildren. When they come over to spend the weekend with me, we would watch movies and eat popcorn. They love that because I have a big popcorn bowl. Everybody has their own popcorn bowl. Well, I can't have popcorn anymore. And that's one of my favorites. And I love nuts. I can't have the nuts that I used to eat. I would just like, cashews and almonds. Those were just a snack for me, but I can't have those anymore. So I've had to adjust my appetite a little bit, but yeah, now I do a little applesauce and stuff like that, but it's still a snack, so I can't complain.
I know that's one thing that, so you go through this experience, right? You get the front end, get through the surgery. I mean, our medical system is really good at Whipples now, but there's still a lot of complications. Anytime you try to rework all the duct work and everything in there, you just, there's going to be complications. And so, whether it's an ulcer, a leak, leaky gut, all these sorts of things that happen, right? And then, so that's from a pure medical standpoint. And we don't talk too much about the food stuff because I think that's kind of overlooked a bit, right? So, when you have this major surgery to a major organ, everything changes, so your digestive system changes. So I'm glad you brought that stuff up because life changes a lot. Like, for survivors, I think we always, and yes, we are focused on the cancer, eliminating the cancer, right? And that did happen. But then there's this challenge that by doing that, what you're left with, if that makes sense, right? Like people are, it's not like as if, and we have gone down this road a bit with survivors, but I not to the degree, and I'm glad that you brought this stuff up, like, because everything changes. You're here, but hey, I love popcorn. When you're saying doing the movies, my older son, my youngest son, who's 17, when he watches movies with mom and dad, he makes the popcorn and he brings it over. So I love eating popcorn, watching movies, right? Or if we go to the movies,
Yeah.
so when you said, oh, I was like, oh man, I don't know if I could do that. Like thinking about it in my own life, right? Like if I just eliminated popcorn now. And,
Mhm.
the routines of eating out, right? Like everyone likes to go out and, go out with friends and family and get out of the house, right? And
Yeah.
that's hard to do when your diet is so specialized, right? And I just remember my dad, but I remember a friend who was like a bodybuilder back in the day, and like he would never go out with us because he couldn't eat what was available. When you have dietary restrictions, like I have a good friend who has a really bad gluten, he's celiacs. So, we go out to dinner and he can't even eat anything. Like he's got to get like lettuce. So it's just so I appreciate you bringing that up, Angela, because yes, we are trying to beat this cancer and try to cure people. But then there's this secondary, like, hey, you're here, but you're not back to where you were. You're still dealing with all these new challenges, and that's gotta be such a challenge mentally and physically. Clearly, from the physical aspect, as you said, you lost 55 pounds, and then try to get back to where you were before from an activity and everything. But then just navigating that daily is not easy.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Um, Interesting you say about your friend who with celiac. I have a good friend that deals with that as well. But what I have started to encourage her to do, because I'm doing the same thing, even though I may not be able to go out and eat some of the things that's on the menu, I still try to get out and fellowship. I am a big, big believer in social interaction. We have to have that because I do suffer from seasonal depression. So, just on top of having, like you said, the still lingering challenges in regards to having to kind of change your life around a little bit, especially surrounding what I eat and how that had been a part of my social interaction with other people, going out to eat and or going out to someone's home or whatever, and having a meal with friends. I'd still now go out, but I go out to fellowship. I'll eat at home, and then maybe I'll just have something to drink or whatever. But as far as just going out and eating, where whatever everybody else is eating, I'm sorry, they understand, but I still want to go out and fellowship, and that's what we need to do. Even though we deal with the aftermath of having had pancreatic cancer, or we're going through fighting to survive pancreatic cancer, it's still necessary for us to get out and be around people that we love and that we care for, so that we can get that support. We need that. Don't go home and just be at home. I can't eat what everybody else is eating, or I'm not feeling my best today, so I'm not going to go and damper anybody else's spirit. If you can get out, sometimes, if it's not as extreme as far as you saying you're not feeling as well, if you're not having to stand in the bathroom and hug the toilet, and you don't have to lay down, and you've got energy to get out, but maybe you're just not feeling your best, it might just be, a psychological thing, that if you do get out, you might start to feel better. And that's just something that I practice. I'm always, always the optimist.
Yeah, but
Always
what you just said is so powerful, though, because there's always strength in numbers, right? And hopefully, you surround yourself with positive reinforcement, not negative, right? But that was like the biggest thing during COVID, right? Is like we couldn't socialize, right? And social media skyrocketed, and that's another podcast for another day on the perils and the depths of social media. But social interaction, that's what makes humans human beings, right? And so it's just such a powerful thing that you just said, and that I guess I go back and I want to, again, I'm taking notes here, but I go back to something that you said, and the social interaction piece buys into what you said early on. And it's kind of like, so I'm writing the script here, as they say, I guess, and I'm able to see things from this conversation, Angela, from a different perspective, because as I look at my notes and hear what you're saying, I'm listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said from the very beginning, with that first time, you saw the frailty of you in cancer. And you said it, and I wrote it, but then you said it, and I started here, was acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you from having, I don't know how many survivors I had. There's a lot of common things, probably over 100. People that have done really well, one of the proper tenets is acceptance. And some people find acceptance in the beginning. Some people find it in the middle. Some people find it at the end. But when they find acceptance, everything else just falls into place, because the cancer doesn't define you. You look at it from a different perspective and you accept the circumstance. I know we mentioned this before. You remove the emotion piece and it becomes a rational decision, right? So, I think when what you said is so powerful about the social piece,
Mm-hmm.
and for some people listening would go, man, like, that sucks. I got to have dinner at home and then go meet my friends or family for just a drink. Like, no, I don't want to do that. But the acceptance of like, hey, this is where I am. I know what's best for me, for
Mm-hmm.
my body. I'm going to go do that like that. And I'm still going to have a good time, and I'm going to still
Yes.
see my friends, and we're going to still talk about everything. I'm going to talk about my grandkids, and, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to talk about vacations and work.
Yeah.
Who cares if I don't go out and have dinner? It's less expensive, right? Like, so there's that, but there's that acceptance, right? That acceptance happened early on. And I truly believe, as a listener here, listening to your story, that was probably one of the big things that made a huge difference in this journey for you, is that acceptance early on. Now, how you got there, I don't know if we ever know that, but I can say, that, and what I've listened to and the things that I've written down here is huge.
Well, thank you. But I do want to add that I got there because of my faith. When I was because I definitely want to go back to where you were talking about all of this unfolded for me during the pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I could have visitors. When I had my surgery, I actually had my surgery on Election Day, 2021. And when I had my surgery, no one was there with me. My husband, the last time I saw him is when they rolled me in to have my anesthesia hooked up. That was the last time I saw him. And so I was alone, but I wasn't alone because I had the Holy Spirit with me. And when I needed somebody to talk to, I was talking to the Holy Spirit, asking God to bring me through this, heal me, let me bring into remembrance the things that I needed to do to sustain myself. Father God, give me the energy and the wherewithal to get up out of this chair and go and walk. I don't want to sit here and just feel sorry for myself. Allow me to do the things that I need to do to help you to heal me. And I stayed in that type of mindset every day. I got up, the nurses would ask me, how are you doing this? How are you walking so many laps? I would be in the hallway early in the morning with my whole little that hook and the little the thing that you hook the IVs on. I forget what you
the pole, like the IV pole.
Yes. I just had that on, my little slippers and my robe, and I was out there in the morning after I've had, my little water and some juice. And I was out there because I was thinking about the things that I would normally do if I were at home. Had I not had the surgery, I would still be out walking before I go to work. So I'm trying to do everything that I would normally do, that I am capable of doing, to help me to get through this thing. I anointed my own head with oil at night, just praying and asking God to heal me. I couldn't lay down and sleep, and sleep comfortably. So I would just leave my bed lifted, where my head was lifted up a little bit. And I would lay back and put the pillow across my stomach just to comfort myself. And I tell you, when I close my eyes, I would say the 23rd Psalm. And it's like every night that the Lord would cradle me in his arms and he would rock me to sleep. And I've always had a good relationship with my Savior, but it's like during that time, I actually saw the miracle of the Holy Spirit working in my life. That was the only way that I could sleep at night, as if I felt the presence of God lulling me to sleep every night. And even when I was able to come home and sleep in my own bed, I got in the habit of turning the ocean sounds on in my headphones so that I would have something to help me to go to sleep. But at the end of the day, he still wrapped me in his arms and he lulled me to sleep, sick and all, but he comforted me. So it really resonated with me, the fact that the Holy Spirit is truly a comforter. And it made me believe even more so that God is real.
So one of my questions was faith, which you just answered. But one of the tenets that I see, or one of the pillars, I would say, that every survivor that we've had brings this up: faith, acceptance, support, and exercise. And not in any order, but you just mentioned exercise. You've mentioned your family quite a bit. I put that under support. Acceptance, we already talked about, and you just hit faith. So, Angela, you to a T have gone through what I've seen hundreds of times, with survivors. And I think, I've got like 2 questions left here for you, but I think you've kind of summed it up, is like, what's your best advice, or the advice you'd give someone who's currently battling? I think we just answered that to a T, though, right? I mean, I don't know, what else would you add?
One thing that I do add, I would like to add to that, not only for people that are currently going through it, but I would like to add, and I've written this on my social media pages, just encouraging people. If you have symptoms of, something extraordinary occurring with your skin, a persistent pain, your eyes don't look as clear as they normally, would look, and that you're not sick, physically sick, where you would know, okay, I have a cold, or I've been around someone and maybe I've caught this, that, or the other. But if there is some persistent symptom that you're experiencing, don't ignore it. Do not ignore your body. You cannot look in the mirror and diagnose yourself. Because as I said, I've been looking in the mirror all along, tumor and all, but never knew I had one until I got a persistent pain in my side. Thankfully, I'm not the type of person that would ignore a symptom, because there is a underlying condition that is causing that, symptom to arise. So had I ignored it, where would I be? Had I ignored it, where would I be? I may not have been here today. So I do encourage people, if you have something going on with you physically, please do not ignore it. Go to the doctor. Let them check you out. They're trained physicians and nurses to be able to run the tests necessary to determine if there's something that needs to be addressed. And you can't do that just looking at yourself. So many people make the mistake of, oh, well, I look fine, or, I sound fine. I feel happy. I feel good. I have to tell you one last story. I get my nails manicured, of course. I went to this salon, a new salon that recently opened in the area called Germantown here, next to Memphis. And the little lady that was doing my pedicure was an Asian lady. And she explained to me like the week before that she helped to cure an illness that her cousin was having, who lived in, I want to say she said Korea. But she made him a tea of dandelion. And he was able to be cured of whatever was ailing him. And it was something digestive to the point that he couldn't stand up. He couldn't even walk. But it cured him. So we talked about herbal, treatments and things like that. And I like that because my family is from South Carolina, and they always, created their own treatments for illnesses, right? So I like that. We had something in common there to talk about. And the next week when I saw her to get my pedicure, she looked at my foot. And I knew I had a dark spot from the side of my heel. And it was very dry. And I was like, why do I have this one dry area on my foot and not on the other? The top of my foot is not dry. The bottom of my foot is not dry, but it's just this little area. And she said, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And after I'd had my Whipple, after I'd come through all my complications and everything, I looked at my foot and I don't have that spot anymore. But she told me that I was sick. But that was before anybody ever told me I had a tumor. And after I'd gotten that tumor removed, I didn't have that spot on my foot anymore. So I was saying that to say this, when I say, if your skin looks different, if your hair is coming out, if your eyes look different, if there is a persistent pain somewhere on your body, do not ignore yourself. Go to the doctor and have yourself looked at. And so that's my last point of encouragement.
So powerful. And we are our biggest advocates, right? If we don't advocate for ourselves, if you don't get the right answer, if you don't feel 100% sure or 120% sure that the answer that you're getting is the answer you're looking for, go somewhere else. So powerful. Angela, my last question here, and there's no right or wrong. This is, I always say all my questions are loaded, but this is probably the most loaded one. Given your experience, what you've gone through, everything that you've experienced, how does Angela define the term pancreatic cancer?
It is a test. It's a test. And for me personally, it is a part of my testimony to not take anything, anyone, or any time for granted. That was one of the things that I think that was a test to bring me to the perspective of not to take life for granted. It's a test. And for me, it has been a testimony.
Powerful stuff. Angela, our last thing here, our audience listening at home, someone may be where you were, in December of 2019 and would love to connect with you, or maybe just someone else who has gone down a similar road and would like to connect with you as well, where's the best place for people to connect, maybe follow your journey as you continue to go through life, with the challenges that you currently have because of pancreatic cancer?
I can be followed on Instagram. They can find me at Bold Spirited One, or they can find me on Facebook under Bold Spirited One, or they can look up my name, Angela Baines. That's Baines. Or if anyone wants to contact me directly, they're more than welcome to send me an email. I'd love to connect. That would be at A.L. Baines, that's Baines, 910 at gmail.com.
Awesome. Angela, thank you for being a guest on the Project Purple podcast. I just went out on Instagram and followed you. So I love connecting. This is something for me that's been really, really special, is to be able to not only share these journeys here at the Project Purple podcast, but get to know people. And you don't have to do this. People can just go on their lives and live their lives. And there's no right or wrong here. And I'm not trying to, hate on anyone who doesn't share their journey with pancreatic cancer. I just know how special it is for people to open up their lives and open up their stories, their vulnerabilities, and that frailty, right? That frailty that you had in your life. That's it's an awful moment in time for you. But to be able to talk about that and share that in hopes of not only raising awareness for this thing called pancreatic cancer, but to help others is really, really is special. So I really enjoyed this conversation, and I just want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity here at Project Purple to share your journey.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. My prayer is that they come out with better testing so that they can, catch this stuff sooner rather than later, so that we can save more lives.
We're pushing, I promise. Thank you for listening to the Project Purple podcast. If you like what you heard today, feel free to share this episode. Follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure to follow us on our YouTube channel. Feel free to share those videos. That's a wrap of another episode of the Project Purple podcast. Till next time, please be safe, and thanks for listening.